Thanks, Sam. Welcome, everybody. We're really excited to have you and your interest here for our 2021 Open Innovation Challenge around detecting lead service lines without breaking ground. We have visitors on this webinar from some that actually joined us for the first webinar and some that are brand new. So to those who joined us for the first webinar, you'll see some familiar material, but we will be doing a little bit of a deeper dive through each section of this, as well as on the Q&A section. First, let me just talk for a moment about the Cleveland Water Alliance. The Open Innovation Challenge is new this year. We're anticipating this to be an annual event. What this means is we actually have requests that go out to the industry for actual real world problems, real world challenges. And this lead detection challenge is a really big one, a very important one for the industry. This challenge is physical detection of lead, copper, and/or galvanized steel service lines from water mains to commercial and residential properties without breaking ground. This is April 6th, 2021. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to our colleagues at Cleveland Water to talk us through it.
Thanks, Evie. All right, good morning, everybody. And thank you for those that are joining us for the second time. And thank you also to the new visitors to this webinar. Hopefully, you will be able to get a better idea of the project that we're working on right now and participate. So we're talking about detection of service line materials in the ground. So let's talk about a little bit of background. Recently in the news, the issue with lead in water came to the forefront once again with the activities that happened in Flint, Michigan. Can we forward the slides? You know, in addition to issues that come for, you know, water, lead in water, we also have an aging infrastructure in our water distribution across the country. Recently, as of January 2021, the new federal lead and copper rule was published in the Federal Register. With that have come some updates to the lead and copper rule and how we manage what is in our system. The idea here is now to eventually remove all of the lead from our system, but one important component of that is establishing a complete and whole service line inventory for all public utilities and water distribution systems in our country. Well, what is involved with this? We have to have an understanding of size and material of the service lines for not only the city-owned portion of the service line, but also the owner portion. So we have a compliance date coming up in 2024, which is 3 years from now, which seems like a lot of time, but in the grand scheme of things, when dealing with public efforts, really isn't that much time, depending upon the service area you're speaking of. And there's a lot involved with this. So what do we do from here? Utilities across the country are all facing the same kind of challenge. Ideally, you know, we have would like to have all the perfect records in the world for every pipe that we have within our service area. The thing of it is, sometimes that does not present the case. So we need to figure out a solution to identify where lead is within our system. So without having eyes on a pipe, the challenge becomes, how do we determine what that is? Now, while it's possible for us to dig, it's not always practical or financially feasible, and it's very time consuming. So here is where we come in with this wonderful project. Okay, so what are we looking for? We are partnering along with Cleveland Water Alliance, as well as the other utilities that are participating on this project. We are looking for true innovation here, because this is something that doesn't exist on the market. And we want to make sure that it happens because it would revolutionize, you know, abilities for utilities all over throughout the country. So what we're looking for is a technology that can physically detect the material comprising water service lines without breaking ground and without the use of a broader data input like a modeling or AI prediction. I know some of those technologies and computations are out there, but we're actually looking for a physical detection tool. So for the pipe detection, lead is definitely the #1 focus. But in addition to the requirements for identifying lead, it's also important to be able to identify where lead isn't, and especially where lead isn't, where galvanized steel is. So service lines for residential homes are about less than 2 inches or less in diameter. And then lead pipes are 1 inch or less in diameter, usually 1 inch, 5/8 inch, 3/4 inch. So to describe what a service line would be in the field, we're looking for pipes or pipes exist anywhere from about 3 to 10 feet below the ground. And it depends on the frost depth for your geography. Obviously, the further north you go, the deeper the pipe has to be so it doesn't freeze over winter. And in the south, it could be just a few feet underground. So for physical detection, what we're looking for is a solution that will detect straight through the ground, whether, not compromising the surface. We're not looking for a digging method. It could be over ground detection or some sort of sensing. Also, we will provide an access to an artificial Curbstop box, which will be a tube access that you may be able to access into the tube and see the Curbstop valve area on the service line, which breaks up the city side portion and the customer owned portion of the service line. There's going to be a bunch of different substrates to detect through. Commonly, we have sorry, I got ahead. Commonly, we'll have soil material, but there also may be sand, clay, gravel, and asphalt and concrete are huge. A lot of times, service lines are either under a road or under a sidewalk or a driveway apron. To be able to have a technology that would help us detect without jackhammering through or demolishing through concrete would be incredibly helpful. So we're looking for something that is a real-time indicator. Basically could give you an indication while you're in the field, is it lead, is it not lead, or is it lead, copper, galvanized? Basically, we want to find something that is going to be able to be easily used by members of our utility, usually our field inspectors, and during general service line replacement or other type of similar evaluations in the field. So something that you would be able to detect based on your field work for 24 to 48 hours later is probably not the best use of what we're looking for. So here's some numbers here. So a goal for success is 90% or greater accuracy rate of detection within these 2 test settings. We're going to, next slide, please. Okay. So testing is going to be done based on invitation. There are going to be 2 portions of testing. The first portion of testing is going to be what we call affectionately the pipe farm. The pipe farm is a simulated distribution system. It's going to consist of the following. It's going to consist of a simulated water main pipe, and there will be simulated residential connections attached to it, similar to what a real residential connection scenario. So there will be connections branching off of each side. There will be a mix of materials that we're looking to view. There will also be a mix of substrates to detect through, that all of the ones I previously mentioned. And there will be a Curbstop box access for each pipe. I know it was asked in the previous a previous webinar that we had. And, you know, I'm happy to report we did a little bit of thinking on this as far as a little bit of modification. Originally it was planned on the pipe farm being dry pipes, but we've done a little reworking, and the pipes will not necessarily have flowing water through them, but we do have the ability now to fill the pipes with water to help with detection. Yeah, and that's pretty much it for the pipe farm. And also, the other part of the testing is going to be in-field testing. Those that are selected to invite to come test and participate in the competition, we will be taking you to a location with a working distribution area. And you will have an area to test a number of pipes to evaluate for materials in a working distribution system. Next. All right, so just kind of a little update here on the calendar. So obviously today's April 6th, today's the second webinar. Just to give a heads up on some items that are going to be due. The next big item due is the letter of intent. So format details are described in the document that was sent out, and it's 3 p.m. Eastern time on Friday, April 16th. Now, I do want to reiterate that a letter of intent is mandatory for submission in order to be even considered for continuing on with this project.
Let me jump in on this too. So the letter of intent is it's very simple. The directions are in fact inside of the request for technologies, the RFT. It's very simple, so very low barrier here. And I would really encourage, if you're even thinking about submitting, to make sure that you get those letters of intent in. That deadline is next Friday. So it's coming right up. And then as we heard from Cleveland Water here, we do have, and from Sam, we do have the ability for you to get additional questions to us through this email address, which I'll be showing again, oi-2021.lead@clewa.org. This will enable us to get your questions to this whole set of utilities here that are participating, and to try and get you some responses as you're evolving your proposals. And then the proposals themselves are due on Monday, June 14th. Having done my own proposal submissions in the past, I've always appreciated having a last weekend to crunch putting in my proposal. But I want to just point out the time here. You know, we released this RFT in March, and the proposal submission isn't until June. And the reason for that is to really give all of you some time to focus in on solving this problem, you know, creating whatever partnerships you might need in order to try and come up with ways to do this. This is a huge market demand right now. As mentioned before, this really hasn't been something that's been available to the utilities to date, and utilities across the country really need it. So we want to give you time to try and come up with some solutions, and you know, whatever state your technology may be in, you know, get that proposal in, because there's a real opportunity to work with these utilities to evolve something that could actually be used in the marketplace. Once those proposals are in on June 14th, our panel of judges will be taking a look through those proposals and selecting from within those submissions who they'd like to see further. and an invitation will go out to those innovators to actually participate in the testing that we described earlier here. Once you're notified of that invitation, then it would be by appointment only. So, again, we're anticipating this may be sort of a 2-day type of thing for you to plan on, just so that you have time to get out to the pipe farm, and also perhaps as a second day to be working with someone alongside you in the field, where there's actually some mapping that's already happened about where those lines are and what type they are. Based on volumes of participants here, there may be an opportunity to do up to 2 additional testing rounds, and that's because we recognize, if you do a first testing round and something shows promise, but you'd like to tweak your device, we want to give you the opportunity to do that and to test again. That testing opens on July 1st and closes August 28th, again by appointment only. And then our panel of judges will basically review not only the proposals that you submitted again, but also looking at the actual performance of your device through the testing season. And winners will be announced Friday, September 17th. There is a cash prize and media attention, and high performers may be invited back actually for some additional rounds within specific communities, and obviously if you perform well, there's likely to be quite a bit of attention across the industry for you to pursue some market opportunities. So just to review the opportunities surrounding this challenge, it's a significant opportunity. There's a lot of pressure to solve this issue. There's direct exposure through this challenge to interested utilities. There's real world testing and validation opportunities here, cash prize, media exposure, and the potential for future testing and demonstration with a whole range of utility communities. So just to review on this, letters of intent are due by Friday, April 16th. That's a week from this Friday, 3 p.m. to oi-2021.lead@clewa.org. Proposals will be due June 14th, 2021. And if you have more questions, again, use that same email address. I'm going to take us back to the questions here. Sam?
Yeah, we've got some questions coming in. Can you describe what Curbstop access looks like? Will it be available in all cases? Will we have access to the interior of the pipe, both upstream and downstream via the Curbstop? Any constraints on probe size, etc.?
I'll go tackle those one by one. Curbstop access is basically going to be similar to what we would have in a district, or you may see in the sidewalk or lawn of somebody's residential neighborhood. It'll be a cap that's elevated above the ground, and then once the cap is open, there will be a long tube that goes down about 5 feet, which is about where the service line will be buried. And you will have access to the Curbstop valve, which is the small valve with has a little tab that we use a key to operate to turn the pipe on and off. I hope that's helpful. As far as will you have access to the interior of the pipe, both upstream and downstream via the Curbstop? I'm going to say no. And the whole reason that we're doing this, and just to give you a little bit more understanding of why we want to detect externally, is one of the issues with lead in service lines is lead scale. When you start putting probes and other materials into a pipe, there is a potential for a disturbance, which could lead to potential contamination of with lead to that residence's service line, also throughout the distribution. So we are not gonna allow, or we're not seeking for a technology that actually inserts any type of probe within the service line itself. As far as constraints on probe size, anything that you could fit down a tube that's probably about this big. Again, remember, you're not going into the service line. So if you can fit it down the tube for a surface touch if you need to, or if you have something that can do detection without touching the material, would also be acceptable. I hope I answered all those questions.
Thank you. This is for EB. When can participants expect to hear back, can expect to receive a response for their letter of intent?
So letters of intent, basically what we will do when we receive your letter of intent is just confirm that we've received it. Your letters of intent, essentially from our side, will serve as a guide to our panel of judges as to the kinds of things that are coming in and the volume of potential proposals we'll be seeing. That enables us to plan some logistics. But unless you ask for it, if you're looking for feedback, just mention that in your letter of intent. We're just using that from our end to be able to tell how many proposals we're going to be expecting and what types of things we may be seeing, so we can plan accordingly. But we will confirm that we received it for certain.
Some additional questions. What is the most common substrate or ground cover that you tend to see covering service lines? Example, dirt, grass, concrete, any rough percentage of estimates?
I'll take a quick stab, but I would want some additional confirmation from my other utility partners. I would say most often, probably concrete or pavement, asphalt on top with ground underneath. I think it just depends on where the curb stop access is in a distribution area. If not that, it would have grass cover. So I think those are probably the most common. When you start to get into some of the other materials, that also is just sort of dependent upon, what is native to a particular area as far as the ground. If you have a very clay-rich area, you're going to see more clay. But I would think, soil and then topped with either grass or concrete or pavement would probably be popular here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We find mostly, especially on the private side of the service line, that it's going through the yard. Sometimes it'll be under a concrete driveway or asphalt driveway. The public side, usually it seems like there's the roadway and then the sidewalk. So mostly it's concrete, asphalt, and grass are the more typical cover over service lines.
Yeah, I would concur. It's generally especially on the homeowner side, definitely between the sidewalk and the devil strip in that area there. And in most cases, it probably would be in the grass. But I've seen it where it's kind of half in the grass and half in the in the sidewalk, and sometimes even in driveways where you have asphalt and things like that. So, but really what's common is asphalt, concrete, and the sidewalk, if it's not the grass. So that's about the gambit of it, if you will.
Yeah, one thing I think needs to be mentioned is most especially within the right of way and underneath the pavement, you're going to have a number of other utilities that are running perpendicular to these lead services. So it could be an electric line, it could be a gas line, it could be a storm sewer. It's the water line itself. So that needs to be taken into consideration and not be, in some way misinterpreted as the service line material. Like, for example, a galvanized gas service versus a galvanized water service and such. So those types of things just need to be recognized as could somehow be a distraction to the results.
That sounds like that could really complicate things a little bit. And that's something I would anticipate during the testing would be an active discussion with the innovator and the utilities that you're interfacing with about problem solving around that. One thing I would want to ask for your thoughts on is if an innovator is able to detect a service line through the grass and it's on the resident side, is there any assumption that can be made that that same lead service line also is lead on the utility side?
I'm gonna say no, because sometimes it's different on the owner side and the property side. It can be two different things, and it's obviously depending on when that went in, and and all of those type of things. I know when I was in Cleveland, anything before 1954 was probably lead, on the owner side, and then not on the property side. So just because you have one doesn't mean you have the other on the other side. That's for sure. I've ran into that on numerous occasions, but that's kind of my take on that. But it doesn't have to be the same on either side. But there's data out there that probably, indicates kind of what's on what side and things like that as you start to look at identifying lead through your whole system. But I've definitely seen where it's different on homeowner versus property.
Yeah, we actually have quite a few cases. Actually, most of our lead service lines in the system, we have copper on the public side and the lead is on the private side. So, which means we've done a water main replacement in the past and we've replaced all the public lead branches with copper. And we've also had situations where somebody in the past has replaced part of the lead line if it was leaking or something with a line of a different material. So the lead service line on the private side is not continuous. It may come into the house, it's copper, but we found lead when we, do further digging, if you will, in different parts of the yard to find out if that service line is truly copper all the way to the curb stop.
And as a follow-up to that question, would the judges consider devices that function better with some substrates, but not with all? Example, if it functions well through dirt and gravel, but not concrete.
I think any that would be helpful. I mean, that would be, in my opinion, it would be helpful to have, even if it was just dirt. That's better than what we have now.
Yeah, I kind of want to see any and all of what's coming. Obviously, just based on just thinking about the panel, what our answers were as far as what kind of substrates do you see in the system, concrete, pavement, asphalt, whatever synonym you want to use there, was pretty common. So yeah, ideally we would like perfect detection through everything. Obviously technologies as they come are different in every aspect, but agreeing with what was said from Cincinnati, we want to see anything and everything. It's better than what we have now, which is it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Our next question is a follow-up from before, EB, circling back. I think this person was just looking for clarification on the process. So they said, when do we hear back from the letter intent? So after they submit the letter of intent, then what happens?
So letters of intent due by Friday, April 16th, and you will hear a confirmation that we've received it either the same day or the following day. I mean, the following Monday. From there, basically that just tells us, it gives us a heads up that you intend to submit a proposal. So from the point that you submit a letter of intent, you've got another 2 months or so there to actually submit a proposal. Am I answering that question okay? By all means, ask.
So they don't need to be invited to submit a proposal. After they submit a letter of intent, they don't need to be invited to submit a proposal.
Sorry, yes, I didn't understand where this was coming from. Yes, so submitting a letter of intent just tells us that you're intending to submit a proposal. From the point that you submit a proposal, which gives us more information about, what you have, some of your background, your expertise, and so forth. From those actual proposals, that will be reviewed by the judges, and the judges will decide who amongst those proposals they'd like to invite to test. So letter of intent, there's nothing you need to hear from us other than that we've received it. But that just tells us that you're intending to submit a proposal.
And then another follow-up, it seems like we were being asked to submit a letter of intent and then a full proposal without any feedback on scope or fit. And it sounds like to me the email address, the oi-2021.led, that seems to be wide open, right, for feedback. If folks want feedback and they want some questions answered, it sounds like that the team is willing to do that. Is that correct, EB?
That is correct. If, the intent of these webinars and the RFT itself is to kind of give you a sense of what we're looking for. Use that email address to ask further questions, but we don't have this available on the market right now. So this is a pretty open-minded panel. We're looking to see what you can come up with to help solve this problem. If you submit a letter of intent and you would like some specific feedback, put that in your email, and we'll get it circulated to the panel to give some thoughts.
Yeah, Evie, just a point of clarification. If you do not submit a letter of intent, can you still submit a proposal? Or you have to submit the letter of intent to submit the proposal?
We are asking that you submit a letter of intent as a prerequisite of submitting a proposal.
Okay. That's a point of clarification. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. The reason, again, is that on our end, we need to know if you're serious. We'd like to know that sooner than later. And we also need to get a sense of what we want to try to accommodate in terms of potential activities we may want to bring in during that testing season, in terms of what kinds of questions that we'll want to try to answer and work on with the innovators during this testing season. So again, it's a very simple letter of intent, but we are requesting that as a precursor to proposals.
Another question here, what is the configuration of the curb stop to the service line? Example, 90-degree angle.
So I think maybe we're using curb stop box or curb stop access here. It's perpendicular, assuming that the pipe is, apologies for my finger demonstration here, assuming that the pipe is underground, the curb stop top is going to be at the top, and it's going to be a tube straight down. Obviously sometimes with ground shifting, you might have a little bit of an angle. I can't speak for the real world scenario in the distribution system. Might be slightly slanted. I think in the test bed scenario that ultimately we're hoping for, you know, a perfect perpendicular access.
Another question.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Beth.
I would agree with that. Yeah, and some, you want it as straight as possible. But I mean, in some cases it could be 90 degrees, but you kind of want it straight on if you can get it.
Another question, would the utility anticipate doing or being open to consider doing a water shutoff prior to attempting detection? If the Curbstop is used to send something in to detect, or if the device works best without water actively moving through the pipe?
As I mentioned before, that for the purpose of this testing, we are not aiming to introduce any type of probe device attachment within the service line for you know, health and safety and maintaining integrity of potential lead scale that could be in a pipe. We don't want to disturb the pipe and introduce any potential lead to a residence. So as far as a water shutoff, ideally we want, as I mentioned before, the test bed can either run dry, or we can actually fill the pipes with water. I'm gonna assume that shutoffs are not going to be done prior to detection in like a distribution system. The understanding is just to be able to detect on the external of a pipe without manipulating water.
Yeah, I know we would prefer not to shut off the curb stop. I'm not sure if you want the pipe empty or the pipe full, but even, I mean, request the homeowner not to use water while this is going on, so there wouldn't be any water flow through the service line. So I'm not really sure what, if that was an issue with the technology without inserting something into the pipe, but if you wanted the water, no water flow through the service line, that could easily be accomplished without shutting off the curb stop.
Thank you. And we have Evie, another comment on the process. Just some thoughts that on the participant's end, the letter of intent is useful for us to know whether or not it's worth the effort to submit a full 15-page proposal. Most startups do not have the luxury of time, and it would be useful for CWA to invite or decline applicants through the LOI process. So I think this person's just looking again for feedback on the feasibility of their technology.
Fair enough. Will do.
Great. I think that's all that we have right now. Any of the panelists or participants, if anyone has any last questions or thoughts to share, please go ahead and do so.
Well, I'll just make a comment, and that comment is, this is absolutely exciting to have this type of technology, and hopefully we get a lot of them, and then this can certainly, given the EPA rules and regulations regarding identifying lead, and it could be a game changer. So I'm loving this opportunity, and I hope we get a lot of good technology out there that we can use as we simulate the distribution system, but then actually get out there in real time and actually use it. I think Jeff brings up a very, very good question. And with all the other utilities that are in the ground, which will obviously, when you get out in the distribution system, there is that, and so depending on the accuracy of what technology we get, if it can differentiate between that is something that is going to be absolutely phenomenal, if this type of technology can pick up lead and the other things that are going on at the other utilities and not pick that up is a feat in itself. So I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to it.
We had another question that came in. If we can provide a successful detection technology, what % of your connections will need to be tested over the next 3 years?
I have to smile a little bit because I almost want to say all of them. You know, each utility's records are different, so I'm not going to speak for anybody but Cleveland. But one of and I'm sure other utilities may echo this, but certain portions of our system we have really great records for, and then there are other portions of our system where we don't have records, or we didn't at one point have the same regulating ability as far as knowing what materials of choice were. So I was going to say, knowing that additional information is going to be absolutely essential, especially, you know, you brought up 3 years. In 3 years is when the actual compliance date is for the new lead and copper rule revision that I had mentioned before, and adding these additional requirements for the service line inventory. And in the service line inventory requirement, that you are to have a complete, to the best of your ability, complete map and understanding of what materials are on every single service line connection throughout your distribution area. And that's both the city-owned portion and the customer-owned portion. So for those of you that aren't familiar with that terminology that I'm using, the city-owned portion is from the water main to the curb stop valve, and the owner-owned, customer-owned, you know, interchangeable there, is from the curb stop to the meter inside the home. So we have to know what both of those materials are, and as other individuals have mentioned, they're not often the same. And while, you know, even within our own utility, we've been kind of able to ascertain a little bit, well, if this is here, there's this much percentage of likelihood, it's still not good enough. We're still going to have to review. Sure, there's certain places we might be able to, you know, weed out based on age, but there's a hefty category there of, you know, needs confirmation, and we've got to have this done that in 3 years. So that's why, unless we have a recent record on it or a certifiable record on it, it needs evaluated.
Yeah, and just to add to that, if it can't be identified, or if you don't know what it is considered lead.
Right.
So just to be clear, if it's unknown, the EPA is going to consider it to be lead. So that's why this is so important.
And I think that question and answer really speaks to the magnitude and importance of this technology, and how groundbreaking, pun fully intended, it would be for not only the utility providers, not only the municipalities, but the homeowners in time and money and frustrations for everyone involved. So if anyone has any last comments to share, Evie, anyone want to say anything else before we wrap up? Great.
So just to reiterate, OI for Open Innovation -2021.lead@clewa.org. And, you know, to those of you who had some questions about the process, I hear you. If you want to ask some of those questions even before submitting a letter of intent, you know, I have something in mind, you know, might this be a fit? You know, go ahead and contact us. Remember that what we're dealing with here as a benchmark is full excavation to find out whether a pipe is lead. And so there's a lot of room to make the world of utilities much easier, much better, and you know, of high interest to purchase from utilities. So we're expecting just, you know, to be really excited by anything that you've got to help solve this problem. But by all means, if you have questions, contact us. And if you have want more information, clevelandwateralliance.org/innovate is where you'll find all of the downloadables, including the RFT itself, and access to this video. We're excited to hear from you. Thank you so much for your attention and your time, and thanks to our utility partners. We're really excited.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.